this is Hannah Fletcher. Welcome back to MUSE TV. I am speaking with actor and producer and all around just really cool dude, really great person. I have David Bianchi with me. Thank you for being here.
Hey, Hannah, thanks for having me. It's always great to see you.
Absolutely. So you and I, we connected at Razor, which I think is amazing. I just think that you're such a great person. Before we get into the thick of it, I would love to know your origin story as to how you came into Hollywood, how you came into the space, acting and producing. Where did all of this initially kick off and start for you?
Gosh, wow. Yeah, sure. First off, I want to acknowledge that I'm an artist first. I'm an actor, writer, director, producer. These are just various ways by which I express my artistry. Because regardless of what discipline I'm filling, they all require different parts of me and different procedures and different modalities to approach them and do them well. But I've always been an artist. I've always been a painter. I've always been a performer. Like in second grade, we used to act on TV commercials on the swing set, and I was, doing improv before I knew what improv was. Did a lot of theater through elementary school and did a lot of theater through high school. And was always driven by performance. I was always a class clown. Got into a lot of trouble as a teenager. And flash forward to 2001, I got involved in becoming a very early rave promoter. So I was like basically turning these like barren warehouses into these like basically one-off electronic dance events. This is like during the time of like police scanners and like pagers and like
Yeah.
map points and ravers getting on a school bus and you drive them. But unbeknownst to me, I was actually teaching myself how to produce film, because producing film and producing a rave, they're very much similar. You're dealing with talent, contracts, travel, logistics, crews, grip, electric, video. How do you create an electronic spectacle out of a barren location? That's what you do with film, especially when you're location shooting. You just do it over the course of 15, 20, 30, 40 days, as opposed to a one-off event. It's interesting, how God in the universe prepares you for what is yet to come. And as far as acting is concerned, I left the electronic dance scene in about 2001, 2002, got my theater degree from Arizona State University, and directed my first short in 2003. And, I graduated magna cum laude from Arizona State and classically trained as an actor there. And I came to Hollywood believing that Hollywood was waiting for me. I was convinced. I was like, don't you guys know who the fuck I think I am? you know, and sure enough, Hollywood didn't give a shit. They were just happy to have another waiter, and and I worked as a waiter and a bartender for 15 years. I got my SAG card doing extra work for
Mm,
3.5 years. I did background work. Shout out to all my background players out there. And
heck yeah.
I in 2005, I produced my first short film that was told entirely in spoken word poetry, and I'm also a poet as well. And that ended up playing festivals and did fairly well for a $500 short. And here we are now, 20 plus years later. Catalyst and Razor are the side effect of 21 years of producing shit that I can act in.
Yeah.
So producing has always been a side effect of my desire and need to perform in front of a camera.
I
And
love that.
yeah, and so to be honest, like, I don't even really enjoy producing for the most part. Like, it's just not fun. It's like, getting dressed up and going to set and sitting in your trailer and getting treated very well and pampered and all the great foods and being told, being the what shall I say, the glossy bird in a cage. Like, that's fun, the make believe of all that. But producers have problems. It's
Producing is hard. I think people don't understand everything that goes into the realm of producing, for sure. I mean, it's a very, very dense job in terms of everything that you're explaining. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Yeah, most people have no
I
idea what producers do.
no.
They,
No,
they,
they don't.
they have no clue. They have no clue. The short answer is when you show up on a set and you see everything, the producer put everything there. So, whereas and shout out to my thespians. Look, I really, really love actors. I'm an actor. I have a deep admiration for performance, and none of it is easy. But as a performer, as an actor, my mind is focused on one train, on fulfilling the language on the script, turning it into a moving, palpable, emotional experience to create a journey for the audience. Like that's already complicated enough. But when you're a producer, you're not just thinking about one lane. You're concerned about the actors. You're concerned about grip. You're concerned about electric. You're concerned about camera. You're concerned about locations. You're concerned about craft services, wardrobe, costumes, makeup, hair, all the things, insurance, financing, financiers. There's so many lanes to think about. And then when you think about the work that I do as a producer and an actor, I'm thinking about all of the lanes that I just described, including turning the text into a moving, palpable, emotional experience for an audience to experience a catharsis.
You're never bored. That's the short of it.
Never
I love
bored.
you sharing your story because I think that we need to hear more stories exactly like yours, especially in this industry. Exactly like you said, you come out to LA and you have this idea that LA is waiting for you and that, here you are and you arrive. And it's really the best of the best and from everybody's small town that they came from. Hey
Hey guys,
LA, hey Hollywood sign.
look at me. Can I knock on your window? Hey man,
Did you miss me?
could you put me in the game, coach? Put me in, coach.
And Hollywood's like,
And Hollywood's like, yeah, I'm just gonna close that. Where'd he go? I'm still here, but where'd he go?
Exactly. That's exactly what it is. And I love though that you took all of that and like you said, I think it is very interesting how God and the universe and everything really lines up and shows you, really hones all of the skills that you eventually are going to need that you don't even know that you need in the time that you're going through it. I resonate. I identify with your story so personally in terms of all of like the themes involving it. I love it. But look at where you are now. You're acting, you're producing, even though producing, obviously, like you said, it's dense, it's tedious. People should have the utmost respect for producers. They do pretty much everything. So I love the fact though that you took the bull by the horns and you decided to make your own things and be able to really represent yourself in the way that you wanted to. And that's something that's extremely, extremely important. And look at how it's going for you now. I love it. I mean, you got a primetime Emmy nomination for Razor. I mean, now you have Catalyst, which we're going to get to here in a moment. What is it like really being able to kind of look back, being in the shoes that you're in now, looking back at the younger versions of yourself and really seeing how all of this journey has panned out for you so far?
It's a very broad question, but Hannah, it's still only the beginning. You know,
Yes.
um, I still have so much work left to do. And there's so many things that I want to create in my limited time left in this human illusion that I live in. And I just hope that I can continue to have the opportunities to create work. That's why I'm so specific and I have such a high aesthetic. And I developed that over the course of years. But as a human being, I've always been very high aesthetic and very clean and very refined. And so that translates to my work. And I take it very seriously because it really is about creating leverage with the work that you're releasing to build the opportunity for the next venture to come, you know?
Yes.
And so I take this really, really seriously. And it is nice to be in harvest, right? Because the majority of the work that we do, especially as producers, we're very rarely in harvest. We spend more time sowing the soil than we actually do in harvest. And the harvest period is exciting, but it's very fleeting. Even if you think
Yes.
about that nature cycle, it's months and months and months for those sprouts to grow, and the harvest is in a day. you
So
know
quick.
and
Yes.
and then the product goes to market and either people love it and they consume it or it rots. That's literally
Mm.
what happens in Hollywood.
It's exactly what it is. Yes.
Yeah. And so when I look back at the journey, I say, hey man, this is exactly the way it was supposed to be. I thought I was ready a long time ago, but I wasn't ready. God wasn't ready to give me the things that I thought I was ready for. Again, do you know who the fuck I think I am? Right? That whole complex that we go through as artists, because we want a lot and we want it now. I'm just very, very, very blessed that people continue to believe in me and that I am able to continue to show up for myself to create exciting work.
Absolutely. Beautifully said. Beautifully said. And now it's brought you to this moment, which is amazing. I was very excited when I saw that Catalyst was that it's out now. I mean, you guys have had it out for several days now. So congratulations on that. I think
Thank
that
you.
that's amazing. I was so excited when I saw that this came out because obviously I follow you on Instagram. So I saw you releasing it and hyping it, announcing it and everything. And I was so excited because obviously I saw all of the success with Razor, and then like less than a year later, you have this, and what a concept with just the whole concept of the film, but also the way that this was shot with like involving improv and everything like that. I would love to ask you from an actor's perspective, and also even from a producing standpoint, if you'd like to answer it in regards to that as well. But what did the process look like having this particular film, Catalyst, involving all virtually all improv? What was that decision like? What was that like being an actor? Was it easier or harder? Whatever you would like to speak to. But that just really piqued my interest personally when I was
Sure.
doing my research.
Well, I appreciate you doing that research. Yeah, look, it's been 9 years in the making, and
Yes.
so when we think about like, hey, God, I'm ready. Hey, universe, I'm ready. Well, no, you're not ready, son. I'm ready now. No, you're not ready, son. You'll be ready to release this thing in 2025. Like we shot our first leg of principal photography in June of 2017. I was a young man, so as it relates to the architecture of it, me and Chris Fulkins have been working together on several short films leading up to this feature film. And Chris also directed episodes 4 and 5 of Razor. And so he wanted to do something that was like experimental, that tapped into the human condition, that was gritty. And so we had been doing some camera tests 9 years ago, bringing actors into a room and then just shooting them in these sort of like mock experimental formats and seeing how people respond in real time under duress. And so that was basically the architecture of it. And then leading up to this, we started developing this idea called Catalyst. And so what I did was I didn't have a casting director. I cast everybody out of my phone.
I love that though.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. I mean, and to give you even more context on that, like I'm very, very empathic. Like I can look at you, Hannah, and I know if I ever need to cast you, I know exactly where I would cast you. I wouldn't need you to read. I wouldn't need you to read. I would just say, hey, Hannah, this is for you. Let's just run it, because I don't need to do all that. I'm good at measuring humanity, in our interactions. And so I ended up calling a bunch of my guy buddies, except for Jermaine Love. And Jermaine and Omar were brought on by Chris. But basically, we wrote 500 to 1,000 word backstories on each of these men. This is their archetype. This is their what's, where's, when, why's, and how's. And then I called up Michael Rourke and Patrick Kilpatrick and Chris Wood and so many great people. And I was like, look, I need you to trust me. We're going to do something that you've never done before. It's going to be intense. It's going to be hard, but I need you to just trust me. And based on my previous body of work, people were like, you know what? Yes, David, we trust you. We know you're going to deliver something. We don't know what, but we know you're going to deliver something. And then they saw Chris Fulkins' director's reel, and they're like, oh, well, the director's great. And David, you're great. Okay, let's do this thing. So I said to all these men, I was like, look, I need you to take this story that we created for you, but I want you to take it even deeper than that. I need you to understand what's your sign? Where were you born? Are you an alcoholic? Were your parents abusive? Where did you lose your virginity? What's your favorite food? Are you spiritual? Are you not? Understand all the idiosyncrasies of your guy, because then that is going to create the foundation of you doing an improvised exercise with us. I told them all the dialogue is not going to be scripted. So it wasn't like where typically you'll go into a movie and there'll be like lines that you're learning and people will ad lib a line here and there. No. There was no script.
Right.
There was nothing, right? Everything was on the fly. And so as an actor, there's that piece of it. Now, to finish your question on the performance side, it was hands down, bar none, the most intense improvisation experience I've ever done in my entire life. And this is coming from a guy with a BFA in theater, with a lot of experience in front of the camera. And I still, to this day, have not had an experience that was that intense in an improvisation workshop. It was literally a pressure cooker. It was a pressure cooker because the pressure was on, because now this will pivot to my thoughts as a producer. When we were putting this together and I was talking to Chris mechanically on how to do it, I was like, look, we walked our location. We knew what we were going to do. We knew which direction the cameras were going to go in. So we had a over-the-shoulder rig. Over-the-shoulder rig. We had an easy rig, over-the-shoulder handheld, and then we had a 6-foot slider. So 3 cameras covering it at once. But then I said, look, we can't lose any audio. So we set 21 microphones throughout the entire space. And then we had 2 booms on top of that. And I think Chris had 6 monitors covering every angle. So we shot it like a live event. And the reason that the pressure cooker was on even further, because it's not like you're in a black box theater in North Hollywood where you could take a break and go smoke a cigarette. Like every second counted. And actors were acutely aware of that. And so because of that, there was no breaking character. We had to go all the way. And in the story, we all hate each other.
Right, right.
right? But we can't attack each other. Oh, we all perish. So when I'm thinking about it as a producer, how do we get every piece of sound? How do we get every piece of picture? How do we create an environment that is conducive and that will make the actors feel comfortable, but also give them things to work with? That's the producer mind. But then as the actor, once I'm in that space, I'm strictly going to war. And then
Mhm.
whatever happens in between is whatever happens in between. The other thing that was great about that from a performance perspective is us listening to each other, right? It was one of the
Oh
most
my gosh,
important listening exercises because we also understood that when an actor had their moment, it was us as their co-stars to have responsibility enough to allow them to have their space,
right.
because if we're just screaming on top of each other, there's no movie.
Right. You have to engage your active listening skills at that point. I mean
Right.
it's so instrumental obviously in so many different facets and forms, but especially in something like this too. And then especially what people don't understand is like that audio, if you talk and then two others talk, then you have three, then the four sound guys are like having a conniption in the corner. It's like there's a lot going on. You really do have to engage those active listen and feel and like breathe it through and like really make sure that you're actively listening to your scene partners there. That's got to be so like exhaustingly cathartic in the best way. I bet you left set every single day feeling like amazing, tired, but like ready to wake up and like do it again the next day. I would guess. I don't know, but
I
that's what it
mean,
would sound like to me
you're
personally.
you're absolutely right as it relates to the sound. Good on you. And but from a catharsis perspective, you're absolutely right. Like I I had never felt more accomplished as an
Oh,
actor.
man.
And having arrived in LA in about 2005, 2004, I was already 12 years into the city. I had
Yes.
never felt so accomplished. Now, mind you, we ended up capturing about 7 hours of raw footage of improvised dialogue on one day. So we never went back. It was one day of improv, and that was the exoskeleton of the
That's
script. That was it.
wow.
We shot the entirety of Catalyst in 8 production days.
That is so unheard. I love how you guys managed to do that. I can't I'm nerding. I love that though. That's incredible that you guys are able to do that like that. That's insane. That's like people, this is not heard of. Like that is so amazing that you were able to do that.
Yeah, I mean,
It's incredible.
it could either have gone really, really right or really, really wrong. And we were both,
Right.
and me and Chris and my producing partner Enrico Natali, we were all acutely aware of that. And to Chris's point, to Chris's credit, he was able to expertly cut together 7 hours of raw footage and whittle it down to about 50 something minutes. And so that was basically the information that informed the rest of the screenplay that we ended up writing. So the final 30 to 40% of the script was indeed scripted, but it was still very loosey goosey. And
Right.
then we went and shopped that around for about a year and a half, trying to raise $20 million to shoot the rest of this movie. And everybody said, yeah, 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 yeah. And then where the everybody
Not the closing of the
everybody just closed the door on me. And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
and so we ended up having to throw away an incredible script that we wrote that was informed by this improvisation. And we said, okay, what can we do that's more manageable, that's going to get us to get this thing done for less than $1 million. So then we completely rewrote the script, and then the pandemic hit, and all the things. And but we ended up producing 5 other full-on production days, and then we had 2 like pickup days throughout the course of that period.
Okay. Now, moving forward, would you ever bring back around the method, the format, the way that you shot this? Would you bring this forward to another future project? Would you want to do something like that again in the respect that you shot Catalyst with your crew?
No, no. I think that it was a great idea
Mhm.
for a team of guys that were really, really hungry to make a feature with very few
Mhm.
resources. Just the same way that if you look at like my earlier works, my first feature film, or like All Out Dysfunction, for example, which is a feature that I delivered for less than 100 grand. I would
Mhm.
never go back and do that again because that's what served me at that particular period in my life. And so, what's serving me now as an artist and as a producer, those ideologies and those desires no longer serve me today. So I have to continue to evolve with where I am as an artist and where I am as a human being. Would I produce something with improvised dialogue somewhere down the line? I think so. I don't,
Mhm.
I'm not afraid to let actors do what they do best. You know, um, there's something to be said about, hey, Hannah and Charlie, you guys are sitting at a coffee shop. Hannah, Charlie just realized that you just cheated on him with his brother, and you're catching a flight in 30 minutes, and you're trying to pay the bill, but he won't let you go. Start,
Yeah,
you
I
know,
love that.
so it's like that's a structured improvisation. But if I have two really highly trained actors that I know can deliver, something magical will happen. Like I think
You're
they
proud,
did,
yeah.
yeah, they did a bunch of that on Euphoria. Sam Levinson did a bunch of that on the pandemic version of Euphoria, I think, when they were in the coffee shop with Zendaya. I may be misspeaking, but it's nothing new, you know.
Mhm. Yeah. I've always been such a sucker. I love like I also have a degree in acting. Improv is very interesting for me. Comedic improv is like not my thing, but I love just improv in general. And even like just watching different forms of improv, and I wouldn't be surprised for the Sam comment, I'm sure. I feel like that's very on brand for his like his style and like how he is as an artist.
Mhm.
But I just I love it. I also just love to just to nerd out for a second. I love the idea of how you really fleshed out all of the characters with really expounding on the backstories beyond even the 7 questions that they teach you in school. Like I love that you guys were able to do that. I think that that's ultimately what really does set up the success for the improv. Like obviously you guys were able to deliver with Catalyst, and I think that that's very important. I love that you used old like theater, or not old, but like the techniques that they teach you in school. I feel like sometimes those are a little bit lost when it comes to film, or it can be. And I love that you like took it to pen and paper and you're like, write this down and really tell me who you are, even down to like the astrological sign and everything like that, the little nuances, idiosyncrasies, like you said. I just chef's kiss. I love that. I love that
Yeah,
method. Such a
it
fan.
did. I mean, it did. It felt very much like if you stripped away the cameras in the set, it felt like
Hmm.
what a really, really intense theater teacher would put you through in your sophomore year. I
Yes.
mean,
Yeah.
it was a crash course, and it was. And again, I lost my voice. We were exhausted. We were defeated. And inside this room, you've got our lead character who was molested by a priest, and then inside that room, you have Patrick Kilpatrick's character who is a priest who has been transplanted by the archdiocese his entire career for molesting boys, and you got my character who lost someone to a white officer, and then you got a white officer in the room who was acquitted for killing an unarmed black man, and so on and so forth. And we realize all these narratives about each other in real time. And
Right.
so the stakes were incredibly high because everybody had something that they needed to overcome, which wasn't
Right.
just their opponents, it was also themselves. Because what happens when you can't attack your enemies, you're forced to communicate. And that's the core of the through line of the theme of Catalyst, which is what is the one answer? The one answer is that humanity has to find a better way to communicate in order to get through themselves.
It's beautifully said. That brings me to kind of my last point here before I let you go. I wanted to talk to you about just the idea of this, like, and it kind of goes back to what you and I were talking about at the very beginning, the idea that God has us like in a cooker and we're cooking, and eventually we'll get out of the oven, but like we're baking. That's like common lingo nowadays. That's what people are saying. They're like, let it cook. But like this has been cooking for 9 years, and then to have this be released now, right now in 2025, with the climate, everything that's going on, everybody's in turmoil right now. It's a tough time. What are the odds? Like how kismet is it to know that something like this? I mean, really, this is needed now more than ever, and like how interesting it is that it ended up kind of being in the oven up until this point. What has that been like for you, just kind of realizing again that this is like what better time than now for this to be ready to release?
Hannah, to be honest, it's emotionally disappointing. You know,
Yeah.
it's emotionally disappointing that themes that we wrote about 9 years ago are still not
Mhm.
only equally as true today, they're even louder because of
Yes.
social media, because of the nature of the geopolitical sphere, because of the new world leadership and how they approach policy and how they approach interpersonal relationships with other leaders. It's because of that volume that it has gotten even more punishing visually, emotionally, and spiritually. So it is disappointing. However, there is something to be said about um, soil and flowers grow on the surface of magma that cools to rock. So we need upheaval in order to get to a place of newfound peace. And I think that right now, the world at large is in a really big state of upheaval. And I think it's going to get worse before it gets better. Yes. I would like to believe that Catalyst will be exactly that for people, that it will be a catalyst for people to look inside of themselves and be a catalyst for change, because ultimately that's what we're trying to achieve with this movie is how can you look inside yourself to make the world a better place despite the people around you that make you feel differences, you know? And so, I mean, is it the perfect timing? Last year would have been the perfect timing. The next year would have been the perfect timing, because unfortunately history repeats itself. But yes, it is a very, very hotbed of societal issues right now. So I think the film is releasing at a good time.
Definitely. Well, I just want to say I have loved speaking with you. Thank you so much for hopping on with me and for having a conversation. Congratulations on all of your success. It's an honor to know you, and again to follow your journey on Instagram. And you're just a very like inspirational person. And we need more Davids in this industry and in the world. I just think that you're so great, and like talking to you too. I feel like I'm walking away with like nuggets of wisdom as well. And I really appreciate that about being able to speak with you and even just having conversations like this. And just thank you for everything and for your time, and congratulations, man. You're killing it, and I'm so happy for you.
Oh,
You deserve
listen,
it.
Hannah, thank you. It's reciprocal. You know, you are a force of nature yourself, and I'm glad that we got an opportunity to speak. And thank you for supporting my work, and thank you for showing up. And look, I hope to see you in person somewhere around campus sooner than later.
Definitely. I appreciate that. Thank
And
you
for
so, so much.
for anybody out there, guys, check out Catalyst. It's on Apple TV. It's on Amazon Prime. Also on Fandango. You know, Melanie Liburd, Michael Rourke, Noel Guglielmi. If you like pressure cooker science fiction thrillers, I kind of describe it as like The Platform meets Saw. Super
Oh my
gritty.
gosh.
Super gritty. And if you like cyberpunk, it's definitely for you. So check it out. Shoot me a DM. I'm pretty accessible. And thanks again, guys.